Hello. In this presentation, we will see the need for the measure, and we will see at the end of this presentation the connection between the experience of engineering group in this field and the OSCAR program. And this is an interesting fact because the two entities, OW2 community and engineering, can exchange information and experiences to grow together. Okay, for everything that really matters in the life, we shouldn't improvise. Whether we want to build a tower or a software product or something else more important in our life, improvisation can waste our effort and can destroy our results. The two authors of this book, people found an easy way to get Tom Gilbert, the author of Software Metrics, to get him heated up, telling him, I found something that is not measurable. Usually this thing gets Tom Gilbert to heat it up because he's strongly convinced that anything can be in some way measured. And this is an informal law that two authors extracted from their relation with Tom Gilbert. Anything you need to quantify can be measured in some way that is superior to not measuring it at all. This is a very important thing. Software development is a very complex matter. It's not easy to control him and to measure him, but it's better perform some measures. And the question is how? For instance, how would you measure this kind of statistics? This is the distribution of the origination of bugs and the distribution of their detection and the effort to fix them. The first thing to do is to define which measure we want to set up. And a very pragmatic approach is the goal question metric. So we define a goal, we ask a question on how to reach that goal, and we define an answer with an indicator to answer to that question. And from this answer, we can refine and derive the metric. This is an example. We want to measure in bugs distribution, and so we ask ourselves in which project phase bugs are originated, and from this question we can derive indicator and the algorithm and so on. Okay, until now this is methodology, this is theory. It's important, the steps further, to set up a corporate framework or a framework shared within the community, because if we work together in a software product, in several software projects, we need to work in a specific way to achieve the measurements. This is our corporate framework, and if you see, we can recognize several aspects in common with the OSCAR pillars. We have the management aspects, the engineering aspects, the system test, the analysis, design, requirement management, and measurement and reports, and so on. This is a very important starting point for defining and collecting measures. Next steps, of course, starting from the framework, is to derive some useful corporate metrics. Again, with the goal question metrics, we can define several metrics. This is a short example of the common shared in our company metrics. This is corporate culture. For instance, we have bugs distribution by project phases. Of course, we want to find that initial distribution, and bugs detection ratio, and so on. And there are also metrics that customers ask to us. For instance, metrics from the static analysis of code, that code, essential complexity. Here you can see the experience from the field. Customers ask us, measure us on these metrics. And one step further, customers measure has defining service level agreement. Service level agreement are not only about the resolution time of bugs and so on, but also in these metrics, in the, for instance, quality of our software code. And it's important to define clearly, without no ambiguity, these indicators. It's important for us to be measured in the correct way by the customers, and of course is important for the customers because it's an indicator of the quality of our production. And a way to define a service level agreement is starting from using an extended Bacchus-Naur form. We started from measures, metrics, we define KPI. These are the building blocks to define service level agreement and service level agreement instances. It's important, of course, to have someone that is expert of this kind of things. You need an expert in measures, in quality and productivity intelligence, to perform all of this work of analysis of the measurements, metrics, and indicators, and so on. The next step is to have the tools to collect these measures, okay? And here comes the infrastructure, because the corporate infrastructure becomes, it is both the, a tool to boost production, of course, serving the needs of the developers, but also it's a source for measures. And it's very important to assemble an infrastructure having measures in mind, because in this way you can assemble an infrastructure that has a coherent functionality. I repeat, both for the production, the productivity of developers, and as a sources of measures. It's very important, so, to plan it, to configure it. We don't, it's better to not use the default configurations. It's better to perform several customization with the means of the single tools. And it's very important to have a structure to manage it, to evolve the infrastructure, and then train people to use tools in the correct way and support them. And very important, ask and collect feedbacks. This is another kind of measure, because this measure can let us to measure the enhancements of our infrastructure. The infrastructure, of course, evolves with its users. So, to summarize, we can say that the roles of an infrastructure are tools to produce software, of course. And these tools will become sources for our measures. Then we need tools to collect measures, and tools, of course, to visualize these measures and let us to perform analysis. This is our corporate infrastructure, represented with the Xebia Lab DevOps diagram generator. To be completely crystal clear with you, Xebia Labs doesn't support XWiki, Spago4Q, and TestLink, but with the aim of the GIMP, Xebia Labs is able to support them. And so the importance of planning and set up the infrastructure. So you need an expert in software development processes. So a person who had the technical information and the knowledge of the corporate processes to assemble the infrastructure in the correct way. And then, in this way, we have an infrastructure that all the professionals in our company can use to boost their own productivity, to have a higher quality in their products. And automatically, this is a very important, is a key factor for the success of an infrastructure and for the success of a process to collect measures and use them in the quality analysis. These measures should be absolutely automatic. They should come automatically from the professional's work. And then, of course, we need to extract this data. So we need an expert in ETL and data warehouse design, because this is our foundation for our quality and productivity intelligence. And at last, professionals to build our reports and our dashboards. Just to have an example, internally we use Jira as a traceability tool, as an issue tracker, but not only the issue tracker. The default configuration have some default fields, but having two more custom fields to define the project phase let us to quickly have the statistics we see in the beginning of this presentation. And using Jira dashboard, we can build the dashboard, the statistics we saw in at the beginning of this presentation. Another usage, the risk management. We use also Jira to manage risk, and configuring it properly, we can have dashboards on risk assessment. Here I'm meaning project risk, of course. This is a dashboard built by the means of Spago4Q. And having our infrastructure used within a company, we can derive automatically information from the production, line of codes, number of projects in Jira, bugs, requirement, the usage of, for instance, Sonar Cube for the static analysis, and so on. And again, we can have automatically information about the usage of the infrastructure. We can see in this way the effectiveness of our infrastructure, because we can see how many people are using and if they are using it properly. And again, I told you that we need also to support our user. We can measure also the support, the effort of our support in supporting our end users, our professionals, our developers. There is just to end. I went very fast. Okay, the connection with OSCAR. At the beginning of this presentation, I told you that there are several points in common. For instance, coding best practices. Of course, in engineering we have these best practices. We are migrating best practices and documentation on an XWiki instance. Measurement and metrics best practices from in the OSCAR programs are tightly connected with the measurement that we can define in our company. And software testing best practices, you can see that in our company framework, this is a process for testing activities. It is a pervasive and parallel process to the development process, and affects all the phases of our software development. In this way, it's easy to collect, measure, and have and gain control on the overall quality of our software. Okay, I just ended.
Grazie mille, Daniele.
Okay, thank you.